Hey guys, Walt Wagner here with Tactical Application Vehicles, and we are revisiting a very special build right now. This time we wanted to do an actual walk around on this 200 series Land Cruiser that we actually did last year, and we weren't real happy with some technical difficulties we had, and the truck wasn't quite finished yet. But since then, this truck has gone to 16 countries and completed the Pan American Highway down in South America and the southern tip of South America, and has been driven as far as you can drive it back, then shipped back to us so we could kind of refresh a few things, service some stuff after about 25,000 miles, and we kind of added a few things for its next destination. So what I'll do now is just kind of go front to back again on this truck and just do a full complete walk around again, and bear with us because this might be a long one. All right, so again, this is a 2021 Heritage Edition Land Cruiser 200 series. And this client wanted to build this truck for global travel. So kind of starting from the front to back, going over some of the new additions, as well as some of the old. As far as body armor goes, we're working with Descent Off-Road on their modular front bumper. And it pretty much replaces the complete lower front clip on the Land Cruiser. Provides a great deal of approach angle, as you can see, and concessions for recovery points and recovery equipment like the Come Up 12.5 RS Slim winch, which is a wireless remote and a corded remote. And part of that, we relocated the winch controller box, kind of hid that away, put the corded remote plug right on the front of the bumper, kind of protected by your shackle mount. And then the push button to power up, put electric to the wireless remote is actually on the inside of the engine compartment. You just push a little button to turn it on. For lighting, going back to recovery gear, we're working with Factor 55 on this, on the Ultra Hook, and that's the original piece that we had on there before. For lighting, we're working with Baja Designs on this. So he wanted an amber, kind of for dust and snow, some rain, things like that. Driving combo, Squadron Pro driving combo on the sides, but then this is a spot pattern in the center. And then we're running the Onyx 6 Arc series Baja Designs light in a driving combo in white. So that's a new addition for this bumper on this trip. We kind of went through and did some subtle little things for him, like we were able to black out the sprayer cover here and match the bumper. It was white before, so we kind of fixed that. Kind of working around to the side. The new fender flares that we put on this, where he's heading, there's a law against how wide the tires can be. So he wanted to have some coverage over the tire, and we were able to source these fenders, and it does the job perfectly. We did quite a bit of trimming and fitting and matching some body lines to make it all work with the tire size, which is the 35 by 1250 17 Toyo MT. Put a brand new set of Toyo MTs on there for him, and it's still on the original wheel, the Method 703 bead grip, and that wheel's been doing really good for him. So we just kept those wheels. For suspension on this in the front, we're running the Total Chaos. What we would call our stage 2 on this, because it is longer control arms than the stock length control arm on a 200 series, so it gives us more clearance in the fender well to fit the 35-inch tire. And we just did some pretty good rock crawling here with it, where we could balance the truck on 2 wheels, and everything handled really nicely. So we've got Total Chaos upper and lower control arms, the Custom King coilovers with a new valving inside, and we pulled all the shocks off, put them on the bench, and pulled them apart to service wiper seals, shock oil. We revalved both front and rear to hold the extra weight that he's got in it now from the original build, and wanted to firm up the normal ride quality with it and get a little more adjustment out of our high-speed compression adjusters. So we manually went in and rebuilt the shocks and revalved them, both compression and rebound valving, so the truck handles really well. What you might also notice is there is no more KDSS in this truck. We completely removed the KDSS in here, front and rear, and the truck handles amazing, absolutely amazing, with the spring rates that we're running and the new shock valving. So protecting the front diff is the Total Chaos full skid plate setup on this. They make a really strong skid, and protecting the diffs, what's in the diffs is a 488 gear ratio with Eaton e-lockers front and rear. So just push of a button, you're going to get positive locked diff in the front and the rear, and this truck also has a center diff lock, so you can be completely fully locked if you need to get into the rocks. For rocker protection, this is the original set that we put on here the first time around. This is the Metal Tech rock sliders. They come out flat, so it makes actually a really good step, and it supports the full weight of the truck, as we just tested out on a small rock we had to slide down off of, and they work super nice. And as you can tell, it protects the rocker panel and the doors from any kind of damage, and you can actually stand on it to access things on the roof. For rear suspension on this, it is basically unchanged from our first rendition of it, except for the valving inside the shocks. It is still the same shock, but we were able to go in and revalve the compression and rebound dampening, as well as the high-speed compression valve. We were able to get a little more effectiveness out of each click compared to what it was before, due to the weight that's in the truck now. We don't know exactly what the truck weighs. I know that question's coming, but we don't have a scale yet to be able to weigh this and get an accurate number. But we just go by totals of the gear that we know we have, and then we can add all that up and then go from there. But it's basically the custom spring for the rear, and the valving in the shocks is what really has done the most bang for the buck on this. Another new product that we're working with, Dr. KDSS sent us a bracket for the Total Chaos track bar in the back, and what that does is we're not running a great deal of lift on our vehicles, but we are running them a little taller because our spring rates are heavier. So what that does is it misaligns the track bar. Even though it is adjustable, it creates an angle from the chassis down to the axle once the truck is higher than stock. So his bracket, Dr. KDSS bracket, relocates the axle side of that arm, and it allows it to run more of a parallel angle to the ground, and that translates into a lot of control when, if you hit something, actually especially at speed, when you hit something at speed, that bar is already parallel to the ground, so the truck has a more of a straighter up and down movement in your suspension stroke, and it keeps the truck really composed. To match the track width with the front, we're running a billet spacer to bring the tire away, so when this thing is in full flex, it actually still stuffs up into the fender and doesn't damage anything when you stuff it in there. It kind of stays away from the shock reservoir and things like that. The rear bumper on this one, we're running the Descent rear bumper with no swing outs, and his spare tire is actually stored in the inside of the truck, and we'll get to that here in just a second. But he wanted it to be as low profile as possible on the back, and it actually transfers weight really well to the inside of the truck. We're running the Baja Designs S2 Pros in the back in a work scene, both as an amber chase light and then a reverse light for white. Kind of as an inside running joke that we have, a lot of folks have commented on the fact that I like a no chrome policy for most of the builds that we do. Sometimes you can't get around it, it is what it is, but these rigs come with a lot of chrome emblems and things like that on it, so we were able to black out all of the chrome plastic pieces and door sills and badging on this Land Cruiser, with the exception of the Toyota Land Cruiser Heritage badge that's on the side. We kind of just left that as it is. But other than that, we were able to get away from the chrome door sills and badging around the back and the chrome grille and things like that. For the roof rack on this truck, we're running the low profile Front Runner Slimline 2 rack, and it's a really good platform for kind of hiding some lights underneath, like the S2 Sports that we're running here in a work scene, kind of for 360 degrees worth of light on the roof rack. We've got 2 on the sides, 2 on the back, kind of facing outboard, and they're adjustable as well. So work scene S2 Sport in white, and for gear on the roof, we're running kind of a universal setup for the max tracks. We've got a set of max tracks on the front with D-rings and stratch it. It kind of makes it easy to use when you've got packed full of snow or mud or whatever. They don't have to fit exactly perfectly together, so you can just kind of stash them up there and throw a stratch it over it. Next to that, we fixed a 190 watt Zamp solar panel. It's a rigid panel, so we're powering a lot of batteries in this truck, so we wanted to have a lot of solar panel real estate on this roof rack, and it's hard mounted, so we don't have to ever worry about having to move it or anything. He wanted the roof rack to be specifically for that. And for storage though on the roof, other storage, watertight storage, we're running the Zargus K470 case in a custom powder coated finish for spare parts and some recovery equipment, things like that don't have to get moved all the time. And it's just a good solid watertight location for all that stuff. In between the two cases, we're running the Demos Delta Pro shovel in the Demos bracket, and that sits right there, right behind the solar panel, and it's a nice, easy access to get to. The WeBoost drive is on a mount that we can actually lay down right next to the shovel. It's a pretty cool little mount that you just pull a pin and you rotate it down, you lock it into place, and it's out of the way. And that's what the little bit of foam tape is for there, to keep it from bouncing off the rack. And for the air intake for this truck, we're running the Monster Service snorkel. They call it their aerodynamic snorkel for the 200 series. And it's been a little bit of a challenge to get everything to fit correctly, but once it's all in, it's very strong and very, very clean looking. And we had to do some little bit of surgery on the inside of the fender well to kind of make everything match up, even though it is made for a 200 series. This stuff is rarely just a direct bolt-on, so if you're looking at getting one of these, be ready to do some work on the inside. Other than that, it's working out great, and we can kind of, once we do the engine compartment, we can kind of show you where it comes into the airbox. All right, in the engine compartment, we made a little bit of changes to work better with the cameras that he has inside the vehicle. This is very specific to what he was wanting, so we'll do a quick rundown of that. We have a safety hub that has fuses for things on the inside of the vehicle, like the WeBoost and things like that, and Red Arc and other stuff inside the vehicle. So going from there, kind of you can see where there's a lot of electrical work going on with this truck for one thing or another, but we try to keep that as clean as possible, running along the firewall and to its destination. But then kind of moving forward a little bit, we're running a dual battery right here, which is the Pro Guide series lithium batteries, and this is a new battery that we're using. This is actually a starting battery, and there's a small little button right here that you can see. You can hit your test button, you can see the charge, full, half, or low, but then it's also got an automatic shut-off in it that reserves about 20% of your battery so you can restart your vehicle with. In this case, it fits in the battery box that we're using, or the battery tray we're using, and it because it's the same size as a normal starting battery, but we've got a Red Arc managing the differentiate different batteries, like a lead acid interstate battery for the starting battery to a lithium battery over here, and these kill switches are specific to what he's going to need. So there's another lithium battery inside the truck that you can kill separately from this one, and then you can kill this separately from the starting battery. So depending on what he's wanting to do, how he's wanting to store the truck, because it could stay stored for quite a while, he can shut these off and not have the batteries be depleted. Or if something happens to one of the batteries, he's got multiples that are fully topped off. Kind of moving right back behind here, you've got your under hood lights with this little switch right here. You've got Baja Designs dome lights, or rock lights actually, one amber and one white, just for being able to work underneath the hood. And that's just powered by this little Baja Design switch right here. Moving back a little bit, we're running into Bantam X S-Pod, and we've got everything labeled right here, right on the cover. So front locker, rear locker, inside you can see where those switches are orientated. And so anybody basically in any country, if they needed to come in here and diagnose something, they could look and see exactly what is what. Everything is labeled very clearly and easy to figure out. And that kind of does it for the engine compartment. We wanted to try to keep that as clean and simple as we could, even though there's sort of a complicated system going on here. We just wanted to try to mitigate any electrical issues if we could. For some of the protection in this truck, we do these in basically every vehicle we build, or almost every vehicle we build, and that's the Revelco anti-theft device. It is keyed a certain way, and it's unique to every truck we put it in. So it comes with 2 key fobs, and if you leave the vehicle, you can simply just pluck that fob out of there and carry it with you, and it kills the power to the vehicle in a way that it can't be started. And you can't possibly jump start it either. It's I think it's 99.8% effective, I think, in their stats, but it is a very inexpensive and worthwhile modification to have if you have an investment like this, or you're in an area that you feel like you want to do what you can to try to save your vehicle or keep it from getting stolen. Kind of moving over a little bit, by the right knee is the S-Pod Bantam switch panel, and you can kind of see how the switches are orientated with the lights, the rear lights, and the lockers. Everything's super easy to get to. And with the Bantam, you can program the switches to do all kinds of different things, and you can also run your cell phone Bluetooth to it, so you actually have a switch panel on your phone. So if you're outside the vehicle, you can actually operate your switch panel by your phone too. For the cameras that I mentioned earlier, the client supplied the Black View camera, and he's able to log into that camera and see what's going on anywhere in the world. So he's got it set up to where it can stay on all the time, and we have battery power designated specifically for that. So that's why he wanted the solar to be as powerful as it is, so he could keep all of his batteries powered up, to keep knowing that there's going to be a draw constantly on the batteries. With cameras being run, the S-Pod has a slight draw to it. So with all of the electronic components that he's got in here, if there's a tiny little LED light on somewhere that's hidden behind the dash, there's going to be a draw on the battery. So he wanted to make sure we had enough power to run those cameras, both interior camera, rear facing and forward facing camera, and GPS locators in this at all times. So the way we laid out the interior of this truck is, this is his sleep platform. This is where he would camp. Instead of having a rooftop tent, we're running the Goose Gear rear seat delete from the front seats all the way back. So we've got the sleep platform here, which has a ton of storage under the floor. And we've got, he's basically, you can lock all of these too. But if he needs something, he's got first aid kit readily available here. He's got lighting inside, which is Baja Designs dome lights with a little switch. So we have a red and a white in the ceiling right there. We have a large amount of storage here with a Battleborn lithium battery, 100 amp hour lithium battery right here. That is there to power the cameras full time, and the fridge if he wanted to run the fridge. So it's designated to do those duties. And he's got other, first aid equipment in here, pillows, sleeping mats, whatever you need for camp. All of his gear is completely in here from his trip. So we wanted to just kind of have a place for everything and know the actual use that he's where he's got everything kind of staged in here. He's got a Pro Eagle race jack right here, which is on very large wheels, and we can show you that here in a second. And it's mounted in its mount right here, and we've got everything lashed down in a way that it doesn't vibrate and create a lot of noise inside the truck. For his spare tire, since there's no swing outs on the outside, we've got the spare tire in here. The tire is actually wrapped in a couple trash bags to kind of cut down on the rubber smell of a brand new tire. Even though some of us really like that smell, you don't want it in your car all the time. So it's in here with this tire cover on it, and it's mounted in an ADD bed mount for a truck, tire bed mount with an SDHQ tire strap on it. He's got tools stashed around it, torque wrench, breaker bar, some recovery gear, things like that, stashed around the spare tire. So when he's on a trip, everything is nicely in its place and out of the way. All right, kind of moving to the rear quarter panel here on the driver's side. He's got some of his gear that's easy to access by hand. If he's sitting here camping, or if you're just standing here at the back door, little trash bag, some Blue Ridge Overland gear, aluminum MOLLE panel for the window, just some random pouches and things like that. Down here we've got a panel that we put in with a matching S-Pod. This S-Pod does the same thing that the S-Pod up front does. So if he's laying back here, hears something at night, or if he's camping and he hears something at night and he can't see, he can hit any number of these buttons for his lights, and have his 360 degrees of light outside so he can see. He's got a voltmeter, dual USB for charging phones or iPad or whatever. So part of the Goose Gear sleep platform, you have top hatches, but if you needed to, you've got side access hatches to where if you had something laid out on the deck, you could reach in the sides on both sides of the vehicle to access whatever gear you've got in there. Kind of moving around the back, this is the rear portion of the Goose Gear sleep system. You've got a drawer that comes out almost 100%. I mean, that little bit that's there is no big deal. I mean, you can reach everything right there. And then we also have hidden underneath this deck lid in that hatch right there is the ARB dual compressor. You have your air chuck right here and your switch right there. All right, like I mentioned before, the Pro Eagle race jack is right here by the door. Super easy to get to. We have it actually tied in with a strap like this to keep vibration down so it doesn't vibrate when you're driving. But there's a cover that goes over it and kind of hides everything nice. He wanted to have everything out of plain sight, plain view as possible. So the black cover on here inside the tinted windows, you really can't see what this is. But it's got an extension. The Pro Eagle jacks are awesome. If you're on dirt or sand or rocks or whatever, these things roll really good over basically any surface. So it's a good thing to have. We've kind of moved to these Pro Eagle jacks more than any other jack on the market. So they're solid and they work great in trophy trucks and they work great in our trucks. So we're going to keep going with them. Right next to that is the Dometic CF25 fridge. He doesn't need a ton of food in here or drinks or anything like that. So this is ample size for what his needs were. You just plug that in right here and you're good to go. For auxiliary fuel on this truck, as you could probably notice, there's no gas tanks or anything hanging on the truck. We're running the LRA 24-gallon tank on this, and it's plumbed into the main filler tube for the main tank. So coming out here, we topped the truck off. It was almost completely empty, so we filled both tanks, and we were just over 40 gallons of fuel in here, and that's just what we put in at the pump. So we're carrying just over 40 gallons of fuel in this truck right now. And as the main tank drains, there's a little switch on the dash that shows your fuel level in the auxiliary tank, and you can just transfer it by pushing a button. And it takes a little while, but it works. You can be driving down the road and just forget that you got the pump running and look down and then your main tank's full again. So it's a pretty cool thing to have, and it's up and out of the way. Hope you guys were able to get something out of this video. We've really enjoyed kind of getting this thing refined and working the way we really wanted it to. Stoked to see the adventure that he's been taking in this, and if you guys would like to follow along, he is at Great White Roamer on Instagram, and you can check out his full trip. He documents a lot of really killer shots of the villages he's in, the different terrain he's in, and with the truck in there. So definitely check it out. It's been a lot of fun to follow his trip, and we'll be anxious to see where he's headed next. So if you want to go check him out, at Great White Roamer, and check the rest of our stuff out at TAV LLC on Instagram, and obviously here on YouTube at Tactical Application Vehicles. Give us a call at the shop. TAVLLC.com is our website, and hopefully you'll tune in for the next one.